Got some breaking news from the Oval Office that changes everything. President Trump just issued a direct statement on Chicago's crisis, and Mayor Brandon Johnson's response will infuriate you. 53 shot, 8 dead. While families beg for help, Johnson blocks federal troops. But Trump isn't backing down. From the Oval Office, he's ordered military assets to stage at Great Lakes Naval Base, ready to move the moment Johnson's obstruction ends. Former police superintendent Jody Weiss confirms what we suspected. Democrat leaders are lying about crime while their constituents die. Even Morning Joe admits the truth now. 8-year-olds with guns, mothers pleading for protection, and 2 Democrat governors playing politics with black lives. What Trump just announced will force their hand, so stay with us. While Chicago bleeds and families live in fear, there's something else destroying communities: the visible toll of constant stress. A 2025 survey found that over half of U.S. adults are concerned about how fast their skin is aging, and 40% fixate on random wrinkles or dark spots. If that sounds like you, you are not alone. This is why I use my secret anti-aging weapon, and I'm obsessed with the changes I've noticed in my skin. It provides my skin with the 5 must-have types of premium collagen needed to help reduce wrinkles. Since taking, I've experienced smoother skin, more elasticity, fewer fine lines, and a more youthful glow. Plus, it mixes smoothly with my morning coffee or tea with no taste or clumps. Be sure to grab a bag of Ageless Multi-Collagen now while it's 51% off, only at healthwithgary.com. You'll find it linked down below. So President Trump had a big announcement from the Oval Office today, a wide-ranging announcement, and this was only one part of it. Trump confirming there are no other options for Chicago and that he will be sending in federal law enforcement. Check this out.
Peter.
You're definitely going to send National Guard troops to Chicago?
I didn't say when, but the answer is, look, Chicago's very interesting because I watched Pritzker get up and say we don't need help, we're safe. But 2 weeks ago, they had 6 people murdered, and they had 24 people hit by bullets. Last week, as you know, it was 7 people, 24 people hit, and 7 people died. And then over the last 2 days, that was the crown jewel. They had, I guess, 9 or 10 killed, and 50 hit with bullets. And you have this governor get up, who's a terrible governor. Probably he and Gavin Newsom would be probably the 2 worst and most naive. They're naive. Either they're naive or they're very untruthful. And he'll say, we don't want any protection. We don't need. So in the last 3 weeks, he's lost almost 20 people killed. There's no place in the world, including you can go to Afghanistan, you can go to places that you would think of. They don't even come close to this. Chicago is a hellhole right now. Baltimore is a hellhole right now. Parts of Los Angeles are terrible. If we didn't put out the fires, and I mean the other fires, the bullet fires, they didn't do a good job with. They should have had the water coming down, like I said. You know, we had to release the water. We had to go in and release the water to L.A. It's so badly run. But if I didn't send the National Guard into Los Angeles, I would be making an announcement today. I'd be talking about Huntsville, and I'd simultaneously be saying, by the way, the Olympics is not coming to Los Angeles. If we didn't do that, and even the sheriff, the top law enforcement person in Los Angeles said, we could not have handled it without them. So that's what he said.
Make your mind up on Chicago, though?
Well, we're going in. I didn't say when. We're going in. When you lose, look, I have an obligation. This isn't a political thing. I have an obligation. When we lose, when 20 people are killed over the last 2.5 weeks, and 75 are shot with bullets. So let me tell you a little story about a place called D.C., District of Columbia, right here where we are. It's now a safe zone. We have no crime. It's in such great shape. You can go and actually walk with your children, your wife, your husband. You can walk right down the middle of the street. You're not going to be shot, Peter. You're safe. Everyone likes you anyway. They probably wouldn't do it. But it's so dangerous. And there are people in this audience you've suffered greatly. There are people in this audience that have been mugged. and hurt badly, and they don't want to talk about it. Maybe you were very brave in talking about it. You made quite an impression on a lot of people. I appreciate it. But there were other people in this room that got...
You're definitely going to send National Guard troops to...
Now, what's interesting is that the former governor, Rod Blagojevich, who was pardoned by Donald Trump, he's been rather outspoken regarding this, the National Guard going to Chicago. And he pointed this out. A couple posts he's made, this one just 10 hours ago. He tells the story of two Democrat governors, George Wallace and J.B. Pritzker, standing in the way of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for black people. Here's a photo of Wallace, the governor of Alabama, right here. Okay? What's he doing there? And then here, Pritzker. All right? Below is a photo of Wallace, the governor of Alabama, who, like Pritzker, worked to block efforts to send in the National Guard to end segregation. In June of 1963, Wallace stood in front of the schoolhouse door and tried to prevent two black students from enrolling at the University of Alabama. JFK, a great Democrat president, federalized the National Guard and forced Wallace to back down, allowing Vivian Malone and James Hood to make history as the first black students admitted to the segregated University of Alabama. And today, Governor Pritzker is blocking efforts to send the National Guard to save black lives, where 80% of the 262 murder victims in Chicago are black. Rod Blagojevich pointed this out 24 hours ago. Governor Pritzker called out the National Guard to protect wealthy donors and delegates at the Democrat convention last summer, but he tells President Trump, we don't want the National Guard in Chicago. 52 people have been shot so far during the Labor Day weekend, more than D.C., Philly, and New York combined. 4 hours ago, Rod Blagojevich posts this. Governor Pritzker tells Trump not to send a National Guard, saying, you are not needed here. This weekend in Chicago, 61 shot, 9 fatally. Pritzker called out the National Guard last August to protect the Democrat convention. Why won't he do it now? So President Trump had that meeting in the Oval Office where he made those remarks. And right on cue, we have where is it? Here it is. A press conference with Brandon Johnson and Governor Pritzker. In the press conference, immediately following Trump's remarks in the Oval, Mayor Brandon Johnson doubles down, refusing President Trump's help with cleaning up Chicago. We don't want or need military occupation in our city. But what's even more sick is what he said. Johnson says the Chicago crime problem is due to red states, not criminals in Chicago. See, Johnson needs to look outside and point fingers elsewhere rather than the failures of his own policies. Listen to this.
Occupying in the state of Illinois. These guns come from red states. They are coming from Indiana. They are coming from Mississippi. They are coming from Louisiana. And that is the harsh reality, whether Republicans like it or not. Occupying our city will do nothing to solve this problem. No matter how much in the state of Illinois.
I beg to differ. Chicago residents are fed up, but here's Governor Pritzker. We've gathered information from unauthorized, patriotic officials inside the government. Now, from my own conversations, I believe it's September 18th is the deployment date. Let's listen to what Jelly Belly says.
I'm aware. So in the absence of significant federal coordination, we've gathered information from unauthorized patriotic officials inside the government and from well-sourced reporters about Donald Trump's plan, which is to deploy armed military personnel to the streets of Chicago. I'm aware that the President of the United States likes to go on television and beg me to call and ask him for troops. I find this extraordinarily strange, as Chicago does not want troops on our streets. So in the...
Oh, is that right? Over the weekend, Brandon Johnson signed an executive order, which is largely ceremonial, to limit Chicago authorities from working with federal law enforcement and to try to stop Trump from sending the National Guard. He does not want the city to become safer.
At the Chicago Police, I'm signing an executive order today that will launch the Protecting Chicago initiative. This is a project that builds on the months of preparation that we have done that has led up to this very moment. This order affirms that the Chicago Police Department will not collaborate with military personnel on police patrols or civil immigration enforcement. We will not have our police officers, who are working hard every single day to drive down crime, deputized to do traffic stops and checkpoints for the president. We do not want to see tanks in our streets. We do not want to see families ripped apart. We do not want grandmothers thrown into the back of unmarked vans. We don't want to see homeless Chicagoans harassed or disappeared by federal agents. And so this executive order makes it emphatically clear that this president is not going to come in and deputize our police department. I'm signing an executive.
Yeah, but it's okay when it's the DNC, right? So what are some of the Chicago residents saying? Chicago black residents are fed up. Chicago Mayor Johnson ignored the residents and signed an executive order restricting National Guard troops from wearing masks. Other provisions include allowing city employees to protect criminals and illegals and other directives.
But this, we getting ready to make this go viral. This is Chicago. This is Chicago City Council. This is how they show up. This is how they ignore the citizens. This is how they break the law. And then they want to turn around and make like we are wrong for not supporting the Democratic Party. But this is what the Democratic Party looks like in the city of Chicago. Doing public speaking. They don't show up for a quorum. They on their cell phones. That's Dancing Nancy right there, who's trying to sell out South Shore to super low income condos to make the city look like the projects. Okay? Now you got Conway. You said Conway or Conway? Conway over there on his laptop because he ain't worried about a thing. He a rich white boy. Okay? And then you got Talaferro and you got Cardona right there. Okay? I'm hoping that they paying attention. Talaferro, I want my rights protected with my case. I trusted you and some other people, and I believe that you're trying to do the right thing. But you are in a corrupt situation. Get that light bulb head, Richard Rodriguez. See, looking like a Chucky doll. See how he has no respect for the citizens. Y'all want to be famous? Y'all want to be famous? Let's make them famous.
Let's make them famous. The people of Chicago are furious. Meanwhile, over the weekend, leftists used their propped-up black leader to oppose President Trump's efforts to prevent more young black deaths. Jack Lombardi posting this 24 hours ago, the left's racism on full display in Chicago. He was quote tweeting Brian Krasenstein about the massive protests in Chicago. Brandon Johnson leading chants of no troops in Chicago.
No troops in Chicago!
A lot of white folks in that crowd. I dare you to go down to the south side and see what they have to say. Randy Weingarten was there too, the president of the American Federation of Teachers, screaming.
Labor, are you ready, Chicago labor, to fight?
Are you ready, Chicago labor, to fight? That's what she's saying.
And today as we walk, we're going to fight a whole bunch of pharaohs. Whether it's Tesla or Target or Valor. What has happened in this country is that the billionaires don't understand that this country was created in protest and in resistance to fight off a king, not to recreate a king.
Oh, yeah. Spare me. Spare me. Chicago politicians use the National Guard to protect themselves during the DNC. They do not want President Trump to bring in the National Guard. This is from News Nation 48 hours ago.
Who was shot. Well, we begin with an eruption of violence in Chicago. Overnight, 5 separate shootings across the city left one 25-year-old woman dead, 7 people injured, including a 17-year-old who was shot multiple times. The violence stretching from the south side to the west side, and as of yet, no suspects are in custody. And it comes as ICE is now preparing a major enforcement operation in Chicago next week. This is part of the president's crackdown on sanctuary cities. The White House now targeting cities that limit cooperation with immigration authorities, calling them a public safety risk. Now, city officials say they haven't been contacted by the Trump administration as of yet, with Governor Pritzker calling this an invasion. Mayor Johnson just now signing an executive order in response to the possible deployment of the National Guard in Chicago. The order demanding President Trump abandon his plans to deploy the troops. Mayor Johnson also warning residents to prepare for the, quote, escalating threats from the federal government. The White House.
Oh, escalating threats. I think we have a clip here of Brandon Johnson issuing his own threats. Where is that? Okay, let's here. Okay, time to clean up the streets for Chicago. Here's a guy just filming a video. The mayor of Chicago is signing an executive order preventing local law enforcement from collaborating with the National Guard to bring safety to the streets. Time to clean up the streets. Just watch this. Watch this. Life in Chicago. Oh, here's another one. Let's see. I think we got it down here. Labor Day weekend brings violence to Chicago. A dozen shot, 8 killed as of early Monday morning. This video is a cry for help as Democrats have failed their city. Send in the troops, they write.
No fun in Chicago. Everybody got to get down. Everybody got to get down because they shoot. Everybody down. Look, these kids are running. They shooting. We can't have no fun in Chicago, man. No fun, man. This is terrible. I ought to throw a goddamn flag. Cause this y'all neighborhood.
This might be over with, but I gotta figure this out.
Everybody gotta get down. Everybody gotta get down because they shoot. Everybody down. Look.
Just some of the scenes from Chicago. Taking another look here. Yuppie white Lincoln Park, Chicago left to say the National Guard isn't needed and we don't need help on the south side. Like I said, that protest footage from Labor Day looked like a bunch of yuppie white women. What does this young woman say?
Frolic at the beach. Liberals in Chicago have the privilege of being able to say that we don't need the National Guard here in Chicago. They have the privilege of saying that because they keep themselves in their careful bubbles of Lincoln Park, Wicker Park. They stay up in some of the northern areas and they go and frolic at the beach, playing volleyball and pickleball and tennis in these areas where it's clean. There's minimal crime. Of course you feel like we don't need the National Guard because you've never stepped foot on the actual south and west side. Elitist, progressives, and leftist white Chicagoans have the privilege of not needing the National Guard in order to feel safe in their communities. They walk out their door in the morning with their babies to go get a quick coffee and their kid on a scooter with a helmet. That's privilege. That's the same privilege that you claim you want to be a part of unpacking and getting away from. It's the yuppie white women in Chicago who want to scream about Trump being fascist, yet they keep themselves carefully, safely tucked away in Lincoln Park. Come to Woodlawn. And not the cute part. No, go past 63rd. Come to Auburn Gresham. Chatham. Inglewood. Get on your scooter there. And do it about 7 o'clock. Okay. If you're not going to do that, mind your business. Liberals in Chicago have the...
Oh, she sums it up perfectly. Perfectly. J.B. Pritzker last week writing, Donald Trump is attempting to manufacture a crisis. And then they post this. 79 killed, wounded, Labor Day weekend shootings. Labor Day weekend brings violence to Chicago. Nearly 60 people shot, 8 killed. 54 shot over the weekend in Chicago. As governor rejects Trump's threat to send in National Guard. Labor Day weekend 2025, Chicago been more violent than recent past years. What's Charlie Kirk saying? It's time for the federal takeover of Chicago.
Native Americans did not build Chicago. Okay, the Potawatomi Indians did not build Chicago. The Illinois tribes did not build Chicago. They occupied Chicago. They didn't build anything, okay? Very sweet, nice people. They didn't build anything. Chicago really started as a military base in 1803, Fort Dearborn. It was built largely, by the way, by the Irish and the Poles and the Czechs and the Bohemians and the Italians. And it was not built by slaves. I mean, there was a big influx of black migration that came to Chicago. And actually, before we decided to addict a bunch of our populations on government benefits, those parts of Chicago were flourishing, were safer. Chicago was largely built up after the Civil War, Mr. Mayor, but he just has to say it because it's kind of part of the modern incantation of the Democrat Party. I think President Trump should call his bluff. I think we should flood the zone. It's already working in Washington, D.C. Chicago is a next perfect test case. As I said in D.C., and people laughed at me, you bring in the tanks, you fly the drones, you send in the Marines. It worked in D.C., it will work in Chicago. People were laughing, oh my goodness, why are there tanks in D.C.? Well, it worked because the show of force is all that these good-for-nothing lowlifes, these lowlifes that are shooting people at 1 or 2 a.m., that's all they understand. These good-for-nothing lowlifes that are spraying and praying, and sometimes a 6-year-old girl gets struck on her way to school, that right there is completely unacceptable. We're not going to put up with that. In the United States of America, we're not going to put up with urban crime anymore. We're going to go city by city, block by block. And the Democrats really don't like it. The left, they don't know how to answer it because, oh, our cities are so safe, so stay away so we can keep them unsafe. Really? You guys have been complaining about how dangerous these cities are for a while. Give us more money because our cities are so unsafe. It's time for a federal takeover of Chicago. We've been calling for this for quite some time. I think we're getting closer. I think you're going to see the president pull the trigger sometime soon. What is Mayor Johnson going to do? Resist? We'll talk more.
Yeah, well, you just heard President Trump in the Oval Office today saying it is going to happen. Even Rapid Response 47 writes, even MSDNC thinks Pritzker should pick up the phone and call the president for help. Wow. Again, Joe Scarborough clearly making moves to appease President Trump, trying to get on his good side after all the trashing he did for all those years. Yeah, we got our eye on you, Scarborough.
Pritzker should do. Well, my concern is you have leaders in Chicago that see this. As you say, we've been reading about this for years now, every weekend, and maybe crime has gone down. But, we had the mayor of Chicago on last week saying, oh, we don't need any more police officers. Police officers aren't the answer. No.
Yeah, when he was on last week, Scarborough asked him 5 times. Would they like 5,000 more police on the street? Brandon Johnson panicked, couldn't even answer the question. I'll never forget that, man.
Police officers, I think he said no 5 times. You look what's happening this weekend. You look so, I actually think that J.B. Pritzker should do something radical. I think he should pick up the phone, call the president right now. Just hey, nothing to see here, moving along. No problem here. Hey, Donald Trump, we don't need you. And, the mayor talking about we're going to protect people's dignity in our city. Well, protect their lives. That's protecting their dignity. Well, my concern is you have...
That blows my mind. After Brandon Johnson signed the executive order prohibiting police from cooperating with National Guard, it's being reported it's going to be days and not weeks until the National Guard sets foot in Chicago. Democrats are once again showing they are on the side of criminals. As I told you in my last report on this, I believe it's September 18th is the date of
crime
deployment.
fast. Chicago officials say they're hearing it will be days, not weeks, before National Guard troops, like the ones patrolling D.C., arrive in their city over their objections.
You're supposed to serve the people. We are the people.
Over the long weekend, President Trump mentioned Chicago 3 times on social media, warning the Illinois governor to straighten out crime fast or we're coming. This weekend alone, more than 50 people were shot in Chicago, though the murder rate has fallen by 50% over the past 4 years.
Every single citizen deserves to be safe.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem confirmed on Face the Nation that a greater federal presence is coming to Chicago, starting with a surge in immigration raids.
We do intend to add more resources to those operations. I won't disclose the details because they are law enforcement and investigative folks that are on the ground there, and I want to make sure we keep their security our number one priority.
In Washington, D.C., there are now 2,300 National Guard troops armed and deployed, though by law they cannot perform law enforcement duties themselves.
This is an erratic, impulsive administration.
On Saturday, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson signed an executive order directing the Chicago Police Department not to collaborate with military personnel on police patrols or ICE raids.
We do not want to see.
You know, don't you think that collaboration would make it safer? Make it so that nobody's stepping on anyone's toes? Make sure that no one's, in the same area at the same time or whatever. I mean, you have to have some level of coordination when you have National Guard and local law enforcement. There has to be. I mean, what Brandon Johnson is doing here is he's inviting chaos with this executive order.
Tanks in our streets. We do not want to see families ripped apart. We do not.
Okay, whatever. The cartel is in Chicago. Here's that young lady, Christian Maxwell, again.
Because of the feeling safe in Chicago could cost you your life. You need to always tread lightly in Chicago because of the vast array of criminality that exists here. Just because they don't talk about it on the news doesn't mean that there aren't major issues here. One of the big issues here in Chicago is the cartel. They are behind a great deal of the drug crime here in Chicago. Just because it's not looking like what you would see in Mexico because they're not as public facing. No, there's a good deal of cartel here. So when people like myself or people who even know way more say that they need federal intervention to address things that you as a regular citizen would never know about, maybe you should trust the people who literally, it is their job to review crime reports that you just would never see. You don't know who they're investigating or what syndicates or things that they have infiltrated that are existing inside of the city and state. You don't know what the federal government knows. So how dare you? The level of arrogance that a lot of people are exhibiting right now, assuming that they know more than the federal government or know more than the people who dispatch the National Guard. The arrogance. But maybe spend some time actually doing something that's actually valuable and do some deep researching to see, like, have any cartel leaders actually been apprehended here in Chicago? What you'll quickly find is that, yes, they have. And a lot of the drugs that you see here are here because of the cartel.
You know what Donald Trump's getting ready to do with the cartels, right? 6 hours ago, I Love America writes, Johnson is not smart. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson bizarrely blames Richard Nixon for surging gun violence. That looks like a New York Post headline from July 9th of 2024. Let's see what else we've got here. Here's Judge Janine railing against Pritzker.
Not enough to bring this guy Pritzker. He should be ashamed of himself to say that 54 shootings that's not enough to bring in extra law enforcement. That is simply a denial of your obligation. It is a rejection of your oath to protect the people. Wow. This guy Pritzker.
A rejection of your oath. Oh, here is Gunther Eagleman, look at this. Pritzker offer a walk on the lakefront. Gunther Eagleman writes, TDS Stage 5. Pritzker was just asked about the rampant crime crisis in Chicago. His only answer is, but Trump.
Right.
You're going to hear people, especially this past weekend, 54 shot, 7 dead.
Yeah.
They're going to say the city's not safe. Would you ask your friends to ride the L after midnight or after, 9 o'clock at night even to come down to the city from O'Hare?
Look, big cities have crime. There's no doubt about it. But let's just pay attention to what President Trump is doing targeting Chicago. He's overlooking red states that have much higher crime rates.
You're going to hear people,
But
especially
Trump.
this past weekend.
How funny. Pritzker out there trying to work off a couple pounds. President Trump making it absolutely clear what is on the way. Oh boy. Buckle up, folks. Here's another clip.
On our street. I'm aware that the President of the United States likes to go on television.
The audio seems a little bad. My apologies. Regardless, President Trump not messing around. If you got value from this report, tap subscribe. My final thought is next. So this is more than about crime statistics. This is about Democrats using power over people. 53 shot in one weekend, and Brandon Johnson's response, block federal help, sign executive orders, lead protests. Rod Blagojevich compared him to George Wallace standing in the doorway blocking protection for black citizens. The comparison stings because it's accurate. Even liberal media can't ignore it anymore. Morning Joe called it a disaster. Former Police Superintendent Weiss exposing their lies, residents screaming for help while 8-year-olds carry guns. But Johnson would rather chant defend democracy than defend children. The same Democrats who surround themselves with guards during the DNC now deny that protection to the Southside families. Trump activated military protocol. Federal forces stand ready, but Chicago's leaders choose chaos over order, politics over people. So here's my question. Should Trump override local officials, declare a national emergency to save Chicago? Drop a yes or a no. Let's continue the conversation. You can support real journalism by checking out our American Badass series at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. You'll find a link below.